What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Panther Tales with your host, Wawawiwa, where we're continuing our Meet the Opponents series, where I'll be breaking down every team on the Carolina Panthers schedule until we're 1 week away from the regular season beginning. Yeah! Last week, we talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and our two matchups where this fierce, new NFC South rivalry was officially created. On July 13th, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the Carolina Panthers rival. Fuck you guys. Fuck y'all. I hate y'all. I have a love-hate with playing the Packers. The love is I usually make a bet with Zoe, which are fun. She should be sending me a jersey this year from last year's matchup. But hate it just because, the Packers are usually good and it's scary. It's fun to win on Sundays. So when you go up against good teams, sometimes you don't win. This week, we're moving on to Carolina's Week 8 matchup against the Green Bay Packers, which will be a Thursday night football game. It's going to be our last primetime game that we talk about from the Meet the Opponent series, but this would not be the last primetime game the Panthers have. The last primetime game will be against the Tampa Bay Bucks on that Monday night football game in Week 12. And incidentally, we actually played the Packers last year in one of the closest and most important games of our entire season. However, before the game last year, to bring us luck, I took out some cheese and I started stabbing that shit, bitch, like it was a Green Bay voodoo doll. Die! 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 Somehow, it worked. Panthers win in the Lambeau Field and beat the number 1 team in the NFC. So obviously, I'll be sacrificing some more cheese this year before the game. At this point, it's not even fucking optional. If I don't stab cheese and we lose, that's on me. The loss is on me. I can't have that kind of responsibility on my conscience. Last year, the Panthers were still a very hot and cold team. Some weeks we looked like a legitimate playoff team. Other weeks we made you question every positive thought you had about us. But going into Lambeau and beating a fully loaded Packers team brought the Carolina Panthers some credibility last year. It didn't suddenly make us Super Bowl contenders, but it proved we could enter into one of the most difficult environments in football, face one of the NFC's most talented teams, and find a way to win. Now we're going back. Bryce Young has another year of experience. Carolina has added more talent. The roster should be deeper. But Green Bay remembers exactly what happened last year, and they're not going to overlook us again. The game will be played on Thursday Night Football on October 29th, only 4 days after Carolina faces Tampa Bay. A short week, Lambeau Field, a national audience, and a Packers team looking for revenge. Let's meet the Green Bay Packers. So a little bit of history between the Panthers and the Packers. Green Bay leads the all-time series 12-6. Carolina is 4-6 against the Packers at home, 2-6 at Lambeau Field, and 0-1 against them in the playoffs. The playoff loss came in the 1996 championship game. Carolina was only in its second season as an NFL franchise, but somehow the Panthers were already one victory away from the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they had to travel to Green Bay and face Brett Favre and a Packers team that eventually won the championship. So damn, guys. We could have been Super Bowl winners in our second year. Carolina took an early lead, but Green Bay eventually pulled away and won 30-13.
Packer play, Sam Mills, the oldest non-kicker to start in a Pro Bowl. Down to the same possession, Kerry Collins, Howard Griffith, the former Fighting Illini, 7-0 Panthers. Joe?
That's a great job. Green Bay's trying to lock up on Wesley Walls, but they wind up leaving Howard Griffith wide open in the end zone. Hardest throw to make for side.
Second quarter, same drive, Favre. Who else? Levens, 29-yard touchdown, corner of the end zone. Joe?
Oh, what a great job by Levens here. Not only does he make the reception, that's the first part of it. You see him go up, and he wrestles it away from Davis. You can't have it. It's mine, Eric. I don't care. But watch his feet. He manages to have one heel hit, left heel down, right heel down, touchdown.
Next play, Favre continues the surgery. Antonio Freeman, 14-10 Pack.
Williams, and the thing that impresses most is he keeps his hands underneath the football so it doesn't.
For field goal, they win 30-13. They're headed to the Super Bowl, and the Ice Bowl revisited from going to the Super Bowl. Rightfully so. They were the best team during the regular season. Now they'll try to prove that in New Orleans. 30-13, the final to win Green Bay's 9th straight in the postseason.
Even though the Panthers lost, reaching the NFC Championship game in year 2 forced the rest of the league to take this franchise seriously. Then we had the 2015 matchup where Cam Newton before the game ripped down a Green Bay Packers sign that was being held in Bank of America. That I've never been more proud to be a fan until I saw that. That's really what was like, yes, like, this is what I've been wanting from a Carolina team to do. Like, stop taking the disrespect and fucking show it that this is our house. So, super hype.
Tore down a Green Bay banner before the game. Is that what made you want to do that? And tell us about that.
Well, it was a Green Bay banner in Bank of America Stadium. Just doesn't match. You know, no disrespect to any Green Bay Packer. You know, there it's just a respect thing. We take pride in having the edge of playing in the Bank of America Stadium, playing in front of the Carolinas each and every week. And it's something that I feel it's my due diligence to protect this house.
Carolina entered the game undefeated, but people were still waiting for the Panthers to get exposed. Green Bay came into Charlotte with Aaron Rodgers, and this was supposed to be the game that proved Carolina wasn't for real. Instead, the Panthers won 37-29 and improved to 8-0. Aaron Rodgers had an opportunity to tie the game late, but Thomas Davis intercepted him near the goal line, and Rodgers responded by throwing down his tablet.
Cobb in motion. Rodgers in trouble. Throws. Picked off. Intercepted by Davis. Panthers take over. One first down, it's over. And I don't know how, if you're Green Bay, you come out of this game feeling. I mean,
still one of my favorite gifts to this day. That was one of those moments where we won the game and it was like, oh my God, we might go to the Super Bowl. However, more recently, Bryce Young has played the Packers twice. In his rookie year, he actually had probably his best game as a rookie against the Packers, where we ultimately fell short just because we weren't a good team, but he played great. And then, of course, there was last year. Bryce really just managed the game more than anything. Carolina returned to Lambeau, beat the #1 team in the NFC, and started proving that we were no longer the laughingstock everybody had become comfortable treating us like. Question to fans from both teams. What's your favorite Packers-Panthers memory of all time? Let's talk a little bit about the game from last year. Shakira does not look like she aged, ever. She looks great. God. Green Bay entered last year's game at 5-1 and sat at the top of the NFC. Carolina was 4-4, which honestly describes us perfectly. We weren't terrible, but we weren't great. We were confusing. The Panthers have now played 12 games, each game more confusing than the last. So I guess what I really want to ask, are we good?
I think we show way too many flashes. I think one game Bryce Young will break the franchise passing record, and the next game we'll be first and goal in the one and he'll throw a pick. It's really confusing. You're definitely right.
I think you guys are definitely a good team, and like you said, show a lot of flashes, maybe a couple pieces away.
I agree with Joey. I think you guys are a few pieces away, but you guys are definitely a promising team.
We are not good, but we are better than I maybe anticipated us being. Showing some signs of progress, but no, we're not good.
Yeah, I think on the edge of being good, a lot of potential.
We're pretty good. Compared to past years, I'd say we're still got a lot of potential, I'd say.
I agree. We're going to get better.
Yeah, we're okay.
I feel like we're good whenever we're not supposed to be. I think we're more of a pressure team.
And this is a pressure game.
Oh, most definitely.
I feel like we're still in that building state. This season right here is giving us that confusion. Like, do we give hope or do we believe that we're still in that building up process? I don't think we're there yet. I think we got the pieces and we're getting more and more better, but I don't think that this is the playoff Panthers just yet.
The week before, we had looked completely lost, then walked into Lambeau and beat one of the best teams in football. Carolina made that game ugly, and I mean that as a compliment. The Panthers ran the football, controlled the clock, protected Bryce Young, and forced Green Bay to play a physical game for 4 quarters. Carolina rushed for 163 yards. The running game kept the offense out of obvious passing situations and prevented Micah Parsons from simply attacking Bryce on every snap. Bryce only threw for 102 yards, but he protected the football, remained calm, and made the plays Carolina needed him to make. Sometimes quarterback play isn't about producing a highlight on every possession. Sometimes it's about understanding what kind of game you're playing. Bryce didn't force anything. He allowed the running game and defense to control the night. And I was satisfied with the performance. However, moving forward, I also want the 2023 number 1 overall pick to start looking like the number 1 overall pick more consistently. When people think about the Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young needs to become the first player they think of. This year, he'll have another season of experience and more control of the offense. He should be able to make more checks, change plays, and take advantage of what the defense gives him. So if Carolina's going to win this rematch, we may need more than 102 passing yards. However, last year, we really did shut down Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons rushed the passer 21 times against Carolina and finished with 0 pressures. Not 0 sacks. 0 pressures. He didn't officially hurry, hit, or sack Bryce Young on any of those pass rushing snaps. It was the first pressureless game of Micah Parsons' career. Yeah, that's us. That's us. Ikem Ekwonu deserves a tremendous amount of credit. He faced Parsons one-on-one 9 times and didn't allow a pressure. Unfortunately, Ikem is now recovering from the ruptured patellar tendon he suffered during Carolina's playoff loss. That means Rasheed Walker might be protecting Bryce Young's blind side in this game. And that gives us one of the most interesting matchups of the night. Walker was Green Bay's starting left tackle. He practiced against Parsons and should understand his speed, preferred moves, and how he likes to set tackles up. But Parsons also knows Walker. He knows how Walker sets, how he reacts, and which areas he may be able to attack. How familiar they are with each other will work both ways. Carolina eventually got the football with an opportunity to win. The Panthers moved into field goal range and trusted rookie kicker Ryan Fitzgerald from 49 yards away. 1 second remaining at Lambeau Field against the number 1 team in the NFC, and he drilled it.
It's either overtime or you're a hero.
The rookie Ryan Fitzgerald, undrafted free agent. The last 6 years at Florida State, an All-American, trying to win at Lambeau. Hold is down, the kick is up, into the wind, it is good! Ryan Fitzgerald delivers, and the Panthers, a 2-touchdown underdog, come into Lambeau and pull off the upset.
That was the moment I started genuinely believing Carolina could make the playoffs. I even said after the game that if there was a game to tell us whether we're going to make the playoffs or not, this was it.
You see this sweat? It's like I just played. Tried to tell y'all. And y'all can watch the reaction later. It was all recorded. Looks weird, but oh, we needed that win, and we got it. Are the Carolina Panthers going to the playoffs this year? That was the game to tell us. So, my answer is yes.
The cheese worked, the kick was good, and the Panthers left Lambeau with one of their biggest victories in years. So please, guys, write in the comments what type of cheese I should be sacrificing this year. Let's talk about Green Bay's 2025 season as a whole. After losing to Carolina, Green Bay recovered and eventually improved to 9-3-1. The Packers beat Chicago, moved into first place in the NFC North, and still looked capable of making a serious playoff run. Then, everything fell apart. Green Bay lost its final 4 regular season games. The Packers lost to Denver. They blew a fourth quarter lead against Chicago. Their defense gave up 216 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns to Derrick Henry against Baltimore. Then they finished their regular season with a loss to the Minnesota Vikings. Green Bay went from 9-3-1 and leading its division to 9-7-1 and entering the playoffs as the 7th seed. But they still had an opportunity to save their season against Chicago. For one half, it looked like they would. Green Bay led its biggest rival 21-3 at halftime. Then the Packers collapsed again. Chicago came back and won 31-27, ending Green Bay's season. Losing in the playoffs is already painful. Blowing an 18-point halftime lead against your biggest rival is a completely different level of pain. This was a team that began the season looking like one of the best teams in the NFC, and it ended on a 5-game losing streak, including the playoffs. You can't blame that collapse on one single thing. They dealt with major injuries, the defense struggled badly down the stretch, the offense became inconsistent, special teams made costly mistakes, and they repeatedly failed to close games they were in position to win. Question for Packer fans. What was the biggest reason for the collapse? Was it injuries, coaching, Jordan Love, or was Green Bay simply not as good as its record suggested? Okay, let's talk about Green Bay's coaching staff. Their head coach is Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur is entering his 8th season as Green Bay's head coach. He has a 76-40-1 regular season record, which is impressive. His offenses are usually built around motion, play action, the running game, and creating manageable throws for the quarterback. But his playoff record is only 2-5. That's really where all of his criticism comes from. Green Bay has consistently been good during the regular season, but its playoff results haven't matched the talent on the roster. At some point, you can't keep talking about how young the team is or how close it is. Eventually, you have to win. After blowing a 21-3 halftime lead against Chicago in the playoffs, LaFleur should enter the season under serious pressure. I still think he's a good coach. Coaches don't grow on trees, and firing someone without a clear replacement can make things a lot worse. But if Green Bay misses the playoffs or suffers another early exit, the Packers may need to finally decide the team needs a different voice. Adam Stenavich remains the offensive coordinator, although LaFleur calls the plays. Stenavich also plays a major role in developing Green Bay's offensive line, and that unit's going through a transition after losing Rasheed Walker and Elton Jenkins. The biggest coaching change comes on defense. Jeff Hafley left Green Bay to become Miami's head coach, and the Packers replaced him with former Arizona Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon. Gannon was previously Philadelphia's defensive coordinator when the Eagles reached the Super Bowl. He's installing a new system rather than simply copying what Green Bay ran last season. That could eventually improve the defense, but it may also cause growing pains. Players have to learn new terminology, new responsibilities, and new expectations. By week 8, they should understand most of the system, but Carolina may still be able to create confusion through motions, formations, and tempo. Packer fans, do you think Jonathan Gannon was a good hire? Or are Packer fans going to become frustrated watching another new defensive system? So let's talk about the key offseason additions and departures. Green Bay added several useful veterans, but the Packers also lost important contributors. So let's start with their additions. They added defensive tackle Javon Hargrave. Hargrave is 33, so this isn't the exact player who dominated offensive lines in his prime, but he can still create interior pressure, and he previously played for Gannon in Philadelphia. They got linebacker Zaire Franklin. Franklin has consistently been one of the NFL's most productive tacklers. He may not have Quay Walker's athletic ceiling, but Green Bay is betting on his experience and dependability. They signed cornerback Benjamin St. Just. St. Just gives Green Bay another big, experienced outside corner, but his career has been inconsistent. His signing doesn't automatically fix their cornerback room. Wide receiver and return man Sky Moore. His career as a receiver has been disappointing. There's no reason to pretend otherwise. Maybe he revitalizes his career. Probably not. But he can contribute as a returner and special teams player. Quarterback Tyrod Taylor. You don't want Tyrod starting for an entire season at this point, but he's an experienced backup who usually protects the football and can keep an offense functional for a few games. Now, let's talk about their key departures. The first player we're going to talk about is left tackle Rasheed Walker. But this is obviously the departure Panther fans care about most. Walker left Green Bay and signed with Carolina. He started 52 of a possible 55 games over his final 3 seasons with the Packers, including the playoffs. Now he could return to Lambeau as Bryce Young's starting left tackle. They also lost wide receiver Romeo Doubs. Doubs signed with New England. He was never Green Bay's unquestioned number 1 receiver, but Jordan Love trusted him, and he regularly produced in important situations. That's going to be an underrated loss for the Packers. They also lost linebacker Quay Walker. Walker signed with Las Vegas. He's an incredible athlete, but his consistency never completely matched his physical ability. They lost quarterback Malik Willis. Willis signed with Miami to be their starter after rebuilding his reputation in Green Bay. Tyrod Taylor may be the safer veteran, but Willis offered more athleticism and developmental upside. They also lost edge rusher Rashawn Gary. Green Bay traded Gary to Dallas. After acquiring Micah Parsons, paying premium money to another edge rusher became more difficult to justify, although they could have just saved everybody some time and included Rashawn Gary in the Parsons trade last year. They also lost offensive lineman Elton Jenkins. Jenkins spent 7 seasons in Green Bay, played nearly every position on the offensive line, and earned multiple Pro Bowl selections. His play had declined, he had injury concerns, and his contract may no longer have matched his production. But he wasn't just some random guard Green Bay replaced. He had been one of the faces for the offensive line for a while. They lost wide receiver Dontavion Wicks. We talked about Wicks in the Eagles episode because that's where he went. Losing both Wicks and Dobbs puts more pressure on Green Bay's remaining young receivers. Packer fans, did you guys actually improve this offseason? Or what are your thoughts on your offseason moves as a whole? Let's go ahead and talk about the 2026 Green Bay Packers draft class. Green Bay didn't have a first-round pick because it was sent to Dallas in the Micah Parsons trade. Their first selection came in round 2. In round 2, pick 52, the Green Bay Packers selected cornerback Brandon Sissy out of South Carolina. Sissy is a talented athlete with the physical traits to compete for snaps immediately. Green Bay needs help at cornerback, so he should have a clear path to early playing time. In round 3, pick 77, they selected defensive tackle Chris McClellan from Missouri. McClellan is 6'3" and over 310 pounds, but he offers more than size. He recorded 6 sacks during his final college season and can create interior pressure. He'll probably begin in a rotation behind Javon Hargrave and Devontae Wyatt, but Hargrave is 33, so McClellan could eventually take on a major role. In round 4, they selected edge rusher Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State. Dennis Sutton gives Green Bay another young rotational pass rusher who gets to learn behind Micah Parsons. In round 5, they selected center/guard Yeager Burton from Kentucky. Burton started for 4 years at Kentucky and has experience at center and both guard positions. That flexibility could help an offensive line replacing multiple veterans. Round 6, they selected cornerback Damani Jackson out of Alabama. Jackson is an extremely athletic, developmental cornerback. The physical talent is obvious, but now he has to prove that the talent can translate in the NFL. In round 6, they selected kicker Trey Smack from Florida. Honestly, that's a perfect kicker name. Now let's talk about Packer players that Panther fans should know. First, let's talk about Jordan Love. Everything starts with Jordan Love. He has the arm talent to attack the entire field and make difficult throws from different platforms, but consistency remains his biggest question. There are games where Love looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC. Then there are games where his footwork becomes sloppy, he forces throws, and the offense becomes frustrating to watch. Green Bay has committed to him as its franchise quarterback. Now he has to prove that he can lead the team through adversity. Where do you rank Jordan Love among NFC quarterbacks? Is he elite, directly below that group, or still too inconsistent to completely trust? We have to know about running back Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is the engine of Green Bay's offense. He's physical, patient, and extremely difficult to bring down with the first tackle. Carolina held him to fewer than 20 rushing yards last year, and that was one of the biggest reasons the Panthers won. If Jacobs consistently gains 5 or 6 yards on first down, Green Bay can use play action, attack downfield, and keep Jordan Love out of difficult situations. Carolina has to follow the same formula and stop him early. We have to know about some of their wide receivers, so we'll begin with Christian Watson. Christian Watson is Green Bay's most physically dangerous receiver. He's 6'4", extremely fast, and capable of scoring from anywhere. But staying healthy and producing consistently have always been the questions. I wouldn't call him a number 1 receiver, but I'd call him a terrifying speed receiver. If he gets behind the defense, no one's catching him. Then you have Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed can line up outside, in the slot, or even in the backfield. Green Bay uses motion and misdirection to get the football into his hands, almost like the 49ers used to do with Deebo Samuel. Matthew Golden was Green Bay's first-round selection in 2025. His rookie season was slowed by injuries, but with Dobbs and Wicks gone, he should receive a much larger role. We need to be aware of tight end Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft tore his ACL during last year's game against Carolina. Before the injury, he was developing into one of the better young tight ends in football. He's physical after the catch, willing to block, and gives Jordan Love a dependable target over the middle. If his knee is fully recovered by week 8, Carolina's linebackers and safeties will have a difficult matchup. We should be aware of offensive tackle Zach Tom. Zach Tom may not be a household name, but he's the best player on Green Bay's offensive line. He's athletic, technically sound, and capable of playing multiple positions. With Walker and Jenkins gone, Tom becomes even more important as the stable veteran in the group. We need to be aware of edge rusher Micah Parsons. When healthy, Micah Parsons is one of the best defensive players in football. He can rush from either side, move inside, and create problems from multiple alignments. He is recovering from the knee injury he suffered late last season. By week 8, he could be fully healthy, playing limited snaps, or still working his way back into football shape. If Parsons plays, Carolina cannot assume it will shut him down again simply because it happened last year. We need to know about safety Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney is the leader of Green Bay's secondary. He has excellent range, understands route combinations, and can punish quarterbacks who stare down their receivers. Bryce has to identify where McKinney is before every snap. Last but not least, let's talk about linebacker Edgerrin Cooper. Edgerrin Cooper is entering his 3rd NFL season and has already developed into one of Green Bay's best young defenders. He's fast, physical, and capable of affecting the game as a tackler, blitzer, and coverage player. Pairing him with Zaire Franklin gives Green Bay an interesting combination. Franklin brings experience in tackle production. Cooper brings explosiveness and range. Panther fans, which Packer players worries you the most? Now, like every week, let's look at the big board and compare the projected starters. So now looking at the big board, we could go ahead and compare the players on each roster. Looking at the quarterbacks, Jordan Love has produced more overall and has more experience leading a winning offense. But if one of the biggest criticisms of Love is his inability to close games, Bryce showed last season, and honestly throughout his career, that he can make the plays late. Bryce went into Lambeau and helped Carolina win. I'm backing my quarterback, baby. I'm giving the slight advantage to the Panthers here. When looking at running backs, this isn't going to be one that we win. I'm going to give the advantage to Josh Jacobs. We might have more depth, but Jacobs is the best individual running back in this matchup, hands down. When it comes to wide receivers, I'm going to give the slight advantage to Carolina. Green Bay has speed and upside with Watson, Reed, and Golden, but Carolina has invested heavily in building a deeper and more versatile group for Bryce. When it comes to receivers, I'm definitely going to give the edge to Carolina. Christian Watson is always hurt. Jaden Reed's good, but he's not like a number 1 receiver. And Matthew Golden, we barely saw anything of him last year. So with T-Mac and Jalen Coker both producing last year, I'm going to give the advantage to us. Tight end, obviously Panther fans, as always, we're going to lose this one. If Tucker Kraft is playing, he is better than Tommy Tremble, assuming his recovery goes well. Offensive line as a whole, we have a better offensive line. Like there might be question at tackle because of E. Kim. However, Rasheed Walker is more than experienced enough to step in. And you really don't hear about many of the players on Green Bay's offensive line. So advantage Carolina. Packers, if you want to let me know a little bit more about your line, or if you think they're better than how I'm rating them, please let me know. When looking at the defensive front, if Parsons is healthy, Green Bay has the best defensive player in the matchup. The Packers can also create interior pressure with Hargrave and Wyatt, but Carolina has Jalen Phillips, and I believe people are going to see just how special he can be in this defense. Nick Scorin also trained with Parsons during the offseason, so maybe he'll want to show his teacher what he learned. Slight advantage to the Packers. Very slight. Or I might call this dead even. Something I would not even consider last year because our pass rush was so abysmal. Linebackers, barely advantage Packers. Franklin and Cooper give Green Bay experience, tackling production, speed, and athletic ability. While Devin Lloyd should be good to step in, there's still questions about Trevin Wallace, even though I think he's good. We'll see how they mix in together, and maybe by week 8, we'll be talking about how Carolina's linebackers have been looking good all season. When it comes to cornerbacks, Green Bay has talent, but it also has major questions and multiple young players fighting for snaps. Assuming Carolina stays healthy, the Panthers should have a strong cornerback room. Strong advantage for the Panthers. We don't really talk about special teams here on Panther Tales, but I'll talk about it here. Advantage us, just because Ryan Fitzgerald hit the game-winning field goal at the end of last year's game. Yeah. When it comes to coaching, Matt LaFleur has far more experience and a 76-40-1 regular season record. His postseason failures can't be ignored, but based on the complete resume, Green Bay still gets the advantage. The Packers win more individual categories on paper, but we already learned last season that winning the big board doesn't guarantee Green Bay will win the game. Where does Carolina have its biggest advantage, and which Green Bay advantage concerns you the most? Holland. Okay, guys. Now let's talk about how the Panthers are going to win this game. Just watch last year's tape and do the same exact thing. Okay. First, run the football. This is the most obvious point because it worked last season. Carolina rushed for 163 yards and prevented Green Bay's pass rush from taking control. The Panthers don't have to copy the same exact game plan, but they cannot become one-dimensional on the road during a short week with Micah Parsons potentially on the field. Running the ball is part of Carolina's identity anyway. We're going to do it regardless of the opponent. Number 2, we need to protect Bryce Young. Rasheed Walker against Micah Parsons could become the matchup everybody talks about. Carolina could help Walker with tight ends, running backs, and quick throws, but it can't help him on every snap. At some point, he has to win one-on-one. The interior line also has to handle Hargrave and Wyatt. The quickest path to Bryce won't always come from Parsons. Step 3, attack Green Bay's corners. Xavier McKinney is excellent, but Green Bay's outside corners are much less proven. Carolina should use motion to identify coverage, force the corners to tackle in space, and take calculated shots downfield. This could become a major Jalen Coker game. Tetairoa McMillan is likely to receive most of the attention, and Coker has repeatedly shown that he enjoys big opportunities.
Multiple times, the way this game started, the early 4th down failure.
Step 4 is stopping Josh Jacobs. Green Bay wants Jacobs to control the game. Carolina held him to under 20 rushing yards last year and has to follow that same formula. Stop the run early, force Green Bay into obvious passing situations, and allow the pass rush to attack Jordan Love. Step 5, force Jordan Love to be patient. Love is dangerous when Green Bay creates explosive plays. Carolina can't allow Watson to run behind the defense or Reed to turn a short catch into a massive gain. Make Love complete 10 or 12 plays to score, force him to keep taking the underneath throws, and trust that he'll eventually give the defense an opportunity. Key 6, win the turnover battle. Carolina can't give Green Bay short fields. Bryce has to protect the football, and the defense has to take advantage when Love becomes aggressive. One turnover could decide another close game.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Key 7, survive the short week. Both teams will have limited recovery time, but Green Bay gets to remain at home while Carolina travels after playing a divisional game against Tampa Bay. The Panthers can't use the short week as an excuse for starting slowly. They have to bring the energy immediately. Key 8, don't play scared. Carolina has already won at Lambeau. The Panthers should respect Green Bay, but they should not act like the Packers are unbeatable. Last season, Carolina stayed patient and physical. It didn't panic when the game remained close, and this cannot become another moral victory game. Last year was the year for moral victories. Now it's time to turn the page and become a team that expects to win these games. Final thoughts here, guys. This is one of the most difficult games on Carolina's schedule. It's at Lambeau Field. It's on Thursday Night Football. It comes only 4 days after a divisional game against Tampa Bay, and Green Bay will have revenge on its mind. Last season, the Packers were the number 1 team in the NFC, and Carolina walked into their stadium and beat them. They won't overlook the Panthers this time, but Carolina should enter this game with confidence. We've already proven we could win there. The Panthers have added more talent. Bryce Young has another year of XP, and Green Bay has legitimate questions along its offensive line and cornerback position groups. Micah Parsons is the biggest wild card. If he's healthy and playing like himself, Green Bay becomes much more difficult to beat. If he's limited or still working his way back, Carolina has a much better opportunity. I think this will be another physical game. Both teams will run the football, and the game will probably be decided in the fourth quarter. Bold take time! My first bold take is that Rasheed Walker doesn't allow a sack against Micah Parsons in his return to Green Bay. I'm not saying Parsons will finish with 0 pressures again. That would be completely ridiculous. But Walker knows him, he's practiced against him, and Carolina should have a plan to prevent Parsons from completely taking over the game. My second bold prediction is that Bryce Young throws for at least 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Last year, Carolina won without asking Bryce to do too much through the air. This will be Bryce's 3rd game against Green Bay. The first matchup became a passing battle. The second was controlled by the running game. In the third matchup, I think Bryce shows that he can do both. Was last year's victory at Lambeau a fluke, Or are the Panthers about to go into Green Bay and beat the Packers for the second year in a row? Packer fans, let me know what I got right, what I got wrong, and which player Panther fans are overlooking. Also, let me know if I was missing anything. Panther fans, give me your score predictions and your bold takes for the game. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please drop a like button. If you fucking love the shit out of this video, please subscribe. Other than that, as always, keep pounding. And I'll see you guys here next week when we talk about the Denver Broncos.